Welcome to the Private Practice Startup, where we inspire you from startup to mastery. We chat with entrepreneurs, experts in the mental health and business arenas, and successful private practitioners to give you the tools needed to make your dream practice a reality. Visit theprivatepracticestartup.com for awesome resources, free trainings, and so much more. Here are your hosts, Dr. Kate Campbell and Katie Lemieux.
What is up, Startup Nation? I know sometimes I say I'm stoked and excited for the podcast, but I'm like vibrating excited about this podcast. Ecstatic.
She's been talking about it for weeks.
Yes. And so this is a very special podcast, and it's so cool because we actually have two people with us today. Two of our faves. Yes. I said, I don't know if I'm excited to talk about the topic as I'm excited about having these two people with us today. So, well, I'm going to keep it secret. Hang on.
I'm going to keep going.
I'm going to make them wait.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Hold tight, guys.
So today we're actually going to be talking about profit first. So really how to make your business profitable, whether you're in private practice, group practice, maybe you're diversifying your income, maybe you're a coach, consultant, I don't know, or maybe your wife is a therapist and she's making you listen to this and you have your own business. It's still good for you too. But before we get started with all of that, we hope that you guys listened to our podcast last week with Nicole Leola talking about multiple streams of income. And if you're a loyal member of Startup Nation, we wanted to say thanks. We want to say thanks for listening in every week. We really appreciate you. And if this is your first time, we want to say welcome.
Yes, and we want to introduce ourselves, right? Because you're so excited. You forgot to introduce the podcast and ourselves. So welcome to the Private Practice Startup Podcast. And I'm Kate. This is Katie. We're excited to have you here. And we've got really exciting guests for you guys today. I know you're on pins and needles waiting to hear who it is, right? Someone's taking a selfie of us as we speak.
So much fun.
There's a little hint. I wonder if you guys know who it might be.
That's good, right?
And another hint is someone's drinking a beer on the podcast. I wonder who that might be.
Well, she's better known as Wine, usually.
Oh, yeah? Every time I'm a big wino. So,
yeah. She has a very special monthly thing with her group. But anyways, so what I was saying is, thanks for if this is your first time listening to us, you joined us at a really good podcast to listen to. So we want to say thank you. And we have a gift for you. Head over to theprivatepracticestartup.com, go to the resources tab and download your A to Z cheat sheet, essentials for building and growing your dream practice. Okay. I can't wait any longer.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
So I gotta say his name because I like to announce it like WWE.
Okay. Ready? All right. You say them both. Okay.
I'll say them both.
Ready?
Okay, ready? So,
drum roll, please.
I don't know if our podcast editor doesn't like that, but that's okay. That's fun. Ready? So our first guest with us today is Ernesto Segismundo.
Yay!
Ernesto, you have such a fun last name. I love saying it like that. And actually, this year, in 2017, I had the pleasure of flying to Greece and actually meeting Kat Love. And then the next month, I had the pleasure of flying all the way to LA and actually meeting Ernesto face to face.
Yes.
That was so exciting.
And I was living vicariously for you during those times. And Ernesto will be in our neck of the woods in February. So we are getting together and that will be fun. Looking forward to it.
Yes. And we have a food lineup, right? That's what I'm waiting for.
Oh, of course. I'm the foodie. I got us covered. Don't you worry.
There you go.
And then our awesome second guest is the lovely, talented, super badass Mrs. Laura Long.
Yeah, what's up? So excited to have you both here.
From your badass therapy practice. So Ernesto and Laura have been guests with us previously. Ernesto is the owner of Cab Family Therapy as well as Filmit.com. And I spell Filmit wrong every time. So it's FYLMIT. I don't know. I like to put the Y after the L. It just looks better to me. But then I have to realize the Y is really for the I, and that's what makes sense. It's funny because I'll post about it, and Ernesto's like, "Katie's, he'll post a comment."
Right.
No, it's the other way. He spelled it wrong.
Every single time.
Every time. So in 2018, that's my goal. Y is for the I. I'm going to spell it right. So guys, today we're going to be talking about profit first, and you're probably wondering, what is profit first? So
And before we dive into that, let's just take a quick moment to thank our sponsor. Today's sponsor for our episode is Therapy Notes. And we actually had the opportunity to do an interview with Brad Pliner, who's the CEO of Therapy Notes. And for those of you that don't know or might not have heard of them, it's an electronic medical record company. It's a whole practice management system. And so they offer a really comprehensive practice management system to help make your practice more efficient in private practice, from notes to communication, to HIPAA requirements, to all sorts of good stuff. And if you want to listen to our podcast that we did with him, make sure you listen to episode 54 with Brad Pliner, talking about tips for EMRs and EHRs. I know it goes vice versa. People say it both ways. And to get their discount, so if you decide you want to work with them, you can test drive their platform for a month free. If you go to privatepracticestartup.com, and you visit our resources tab, you'll see the link there, and let them know we referred you. You'll get your first month for free. And then if you decide to work with them and you love their platform, which you probably will, they will give you 10% off of your first year with them. So make sure to check that out. And we just want to thank them for being our sponsors for today.
See, this just shows how excited I am. I'm all over the place forgetting all important things. So anyways, right? Now we can dive into the topic. So guys, who wants to share what is Profit First? Laura, you want to talk about that?
Absolutely. Profit First is a cash management system. So that is like the formal title for it. And it's basically a way for you to organize all of the money coming into your business and allocating it properly out, including your pay and this awesome thing called profit, which many entrepreneurs forget about. They think that their pay is profit, and those are actually two separate things. So so Profit First is a cash management system, and it allows you to be compensated for the work you do in the business while also being rewarded quarterly for the awesome stuff you're doing in your business.
I have to say, that's my favorite time.
Wow.
Businesses are amazing.
That was impressive, Laura.
Boom. Drop that on.
I'm sure people are finding it hysterical that we're so amped up for a podcast about Profit First. And it's, most people are like, finances, numbers, eek. I don't know. I know it makes me want to cringe because I'm not really a numbers person, but I just love it. And the Profit First system is amazing. So that was a good intro, Laura.
Ernesto, did you want to add about the core principles and the difference between the traditional way of thinking and Profit First?
Yeah, the way that I look at this, and it really puts things into perspective when you understand the core principles of Profit First. Profit First is it's not. It looks intimidating in the very beginning, but the title Profit First is basically thinking about yourself. You need to start paying yourself. If you see a lot of people that says, "Yeah, I've got 6 figures at the end of the year," but in actuality, you have to look, did you make some profit during that year? So Profit First actually looks at whether your business is healthy in the idea of, are you paying yourself? Are you making actual profit in your business? Because you can tout all day long, I made 6 figures a year, but the reality is, did you make profit off of your business? So the core principles in the book actually talks about using small plates, serves sequentially, remove temptation, enforce a rhythm. I mean, it basically looks at how you look at money from a psychological perspective, how you allocate, like what Laura says, where the money is going into, and then developing that certain rhythm that your body needs and your mind needs to continue that type of growth in your business.
Really important, and I think that's definitely in Michael, and I'm not going to mess up his last name, nor am I going to say it, but he talks about the whole idea, the perspective of the traditional way of thinking, right? It's like money in minus expenses equals profit. No. No, that equals actually being poor and broke.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's money in minus profit then equals expenses. And that's the way that Michael suggests us to really look at that. And obviously, we're all excited about this podcast because we're implementing this in our own businesses and seeing amazing results. And it's funny, Ernesto, you mentioned about the small plates, right? So we have all of our different checking accounts or accounts in one bank, right? And I know he talks about 2 other accounts that you should have outside to really avoid temptation. So it's funny, Kate Kate was saying something like, "Oh, let's actually." It was one of those selfie lights that she wanted to buy. The vanity ring
that you posted online. I was like, oh, Ernesto's got this, and it's taking these amazing pictures where his eyes are lit up, and it's going to be so good for our video. And we got a lot of money in the bank. Let's go ahead and buy this for ourselves. And she's like, no, let's look at the one OPEX account. And we'll go from there. We'll buy it after the holidays.
Yeah, we're going to get some more income in and make more profit before we buy it. So it's really important about portioning out your money and really understanding where each of that stuff is allocated. And when actually I met Ernesto in LA face-to-face, we were talking about different money management systems personally, right? And I follow what I've learned from Millionaire Intensive from T. Harv Eckert. I know Dave Ramsey talks about the envelope system. There's the jar system. And when you portion that money, and this is what we had said, is like, my mom was just down here and she said, how many bank accounts do you have? I'm like, I think like 9. And she like looked at me like, what? I was like, no, really. And it's funny because you have all this like money portioned in different places and it's almost like exciting. It's like, oh, I didn't know I had that much money in there. Like in my Play account, I have like $1,400 right now.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Vegas.
That was the Vegas account.
Well, and Profit First is essentially your grandmother's envelope system, but it's electronic. That's, if we were to just really dumb it down and make it super simplified, because I think what Ernesto said is right. People start reading it and they get really intimidated and overwhelmed. You get to page 60 something. And then he starts throwing out these figures and these acronyms like TAPS and CAPS and this instant assessment. And you're like, what the heck is an instant assessment? How does this work? And so I think a lot of people get really stuck on that. But if you were to just conceptualize it, he talks about Parkinson's law, which is if you have like this big plate of food, right, you're going to eat more food. But if you have little plates, like we're talking about allocating in these smaller accounts, you are more likely to spend in a smart way. Mm-hmm. And if you're putting your profit literally first before anything else, even if it's just, he talks about starting very small, so just 1%, you can live on less than 1%, right? So if you're taking that 1% and moving it into this separate account, over time, as you can add, maybe go to 2%, 3%, you will start to see, oh my gosh, I can run my business more efficiently on less. And then at the end of every quarter, you look and you're like, oh my gosh, where'd all this money come from? Vegas.
That's it. Exactly. And to jump on that, I mean, it's an incredible system for those of us, speaking for me, who, when you look at something big, you want to spend it, right? When I see a big amount in my bank account, the first thing I'm thinking about is what drone I'm going to buy, what camera system I'm going to get, what editing software. I mean, those things are expensive, right? So when I allocate those, like what Laura says, I'm less tempted to spend that money. And especially with people who have money stories, money narratives like me, where if you hold cash in your hand, it needs to fly away like little butterflies somewhere in Vegas, right? That's what I grew up with. And that's the kind of crap I got to tell my mind. Put it in small places. Put it in small place, like what Profit First is saying.
Exactly. So I know, Laura, you're actually developing something for kind of, therapists and stuff like that. So we're going to definitely share that at the end. But I know you've been getting some questions about like, what is Profit First? And so what questions are you getting that most people are asking?
So typically people want to know, how do I even get started? Like, what would be, if I wanted to implement Profit First, what would be just even step one? They often tell me that they've started reading the book, and again, they just get overwhelmed, intimidated. So they're like, okay, if I were to just start somewhere, where do I need to start? And so that's when we have that conversation about the different bank accounts. And so the first step, just like with anything else you do, the first step is the most difficult. First of all, even finding a bank that can work with you and allow you to open up all of these different accounts under one. I mean, I got looked at like I had 4 eyeballs. They did it, but it took me a while. And that it was easy for me to want it to just back off and be like, okay, never mind. It's not worth it. I'll just do it the way I've always done it. So the first step would be that you need to find a bank that will allow you to have multiple accounts under one. So the first main one where all of the money coming in goes to is called your income account. And then all of the other accounts that we'll be talking about all fall under that. So that when you go online and you can check your account balances, you should be able to see all of them on the same screen. So I've talked to the higher ups at Profit First, and I know they are in the process of certifying banks to be like certified Profit First banks that you can go to, and they're not going to give you the hairy eyeball. But right now they don't have that. So that would be step one, is you need to go find a bank. Typically the smaller banks, the credit unions are going to be great for this. The huge, big, mega monster banks probably are not going to be as helpful to work with. What do you think, Ernesto?
Yeah, and some banks also gives you if you present this whole Profit First to them and you want to open up a bank account, they'll charge you these fees all over the place. And so you kind of have to do your research and shop to different places. Maybe I can send you guys a list. Maybe you have a list, Laura, that banks that allows this. Mm-hmm. And so that would be a really helpful thing.
Yeah, and usually most regional banks will work with you, especially if they know that this is for a business. They will make the assumption that you're going to be bringing money to the bank. So my bank that I started working with for this process, at first they were kind of like, I don't know if we do that. But then when I made sure that they knew this was for a business that does generate income, they were like, oh, this isn't just like a personal weird thing you have. This is for an actual business that you would be bringing to our bank. Yes. Okay, we'll work with you.
They like that, right? Mm-hmm. They like that. Bring money to them and they're going to sing your tune.
Laura, what bank do you use?
Mine is a regional bank. It's called First Citizens. So it's kind of in the southeast. I looked the other day to see how many branches they actually had. It seems like they're pretty much in like a couple in Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina. So if you're in the southern parts of the country, then you'll probably find one. And then my second bank is just a small local credit union.
So the way that you set it up, did you set it up as you have your one main account and then you have your sub accounts within that? Or did you set up multiple accounts separate?
So as far as my bank is concerned, they are completely separate accounts, but somehow they have allowed it so that I can log on using my one login, my one password, and I can view all of the accounts simultaneously. But as far as the bank is concerned, they each have their own separate account number.
Gotcha. And what about you, Ernesto? Which bank do you use?
Sure. I got Capital One. And then my two accounts that are, I'm going to go into this real quick, the No Temptation accounts. It's actually First Hawaiian Bank.
Ooh.
In Hawaii, because I'm from Hawaii. And so, I've got a couple of my family members who's actually looking at that bank account. So that's my No Temptation account. So they know that if I dip into that profit, they know that I'm spending that in Vegas. So...
Nice. So you safeguarded yourself by putting that on an island, literally.
Literally. So I take my No Temptation account, and I got it, like I said, for those of us who struggle with holding money, you have to be very creative in the way that you not touch these money. So for me, my process is make it as difficult as possible. I don't want to know the PIN. All I want to do is take my bank account and transfer money there. And if I really need it, I would have to go to two people to say, okay, here, go ahead and do this.
It's like you've set up sharks swimming around that island, So you literally cannot get there unless you're going to get eaten.
It's literally a chastity belt.
A money chastity belt?
Exactly.
Well, we won't go into that because that sounds inappropriate.
I'm all about that. We can go there if you want.
Of course. We know you are. So Laura, what other questions are you getting from people? So how do we get started is the first.
So people typically want to know, what are these bank accounts supposed to be called? Like, what are these separate accounts? And then the next question, which we can go into a little later, is these whole like percentages, these allocations, the taps, caps, all of that. So let's go over the actual plates, if you will, what they're actually called. So the primary account, this is the account that any check you receive, any money, if you use, whether it's like Square, PayPal, Ivy Pay, Stripe, whatever electronic remittance advice, like anything you're doing to generate money from clients is going into this big account, this big plate called income. And then there are 4 other plates underneath it, if you were to conceptualize it that way. And so the first one literally is, what do you guys think?
Profit!
So the first plate is profit. The second plate is your taxes. Womp womp. Third plate is your operating expenses, which we shorten to OpEx. So for the rest of the podcast, when we say OpEx, we're talking about operating expenses. That took me a hot minute to understand that at the beginning. I was like, what the heck is OpEx?
I had to keep reading that paragraph. I had to keep reading that.
Yeah. And then the final... Yeah, the final one is your owner's comp or your owner's pay. And so the next question I typically get from people is, what's the difference between the owner's pay plate and the profit plate? Why are they 2 separate things? So I don't know, Ernesto, do you want to chime in here?
Yeah, so the way that I see the profit first is basically my personal. This is where I go into all my personal finances. This is where I treat myself if I wanted to go get incredible sushi or food. This is where the money is coming out of. Now, that piece, the owner comp, is, let's say you own a business, right? And all of those things right there, that is where you can kind of go into paying yourself from that amount as well, too. So that's how I see it.
Mm-hmm. And I think the owner's comp too, right, if I remember correctly, is also part like crisis, right? God forbid something happens. Like, so interestingly enough, so in South Florida here, I know Ernesto's dealing with fires over in California right now, but in South Florida, well, actually all of Florida, we had Hurricane Irma this year in September, and we had our supervision course, and we had quite a bit of profit come in from that, and we had to reschedule the course. So that meant we had to pay $4,000 back to attendees who weren't able to come to the next scheduled. Thank God we had enough time to market, recoup that $4,000. But the whole idea of having some money for crisis, God forbid you have a natural disaster or you're medically, you get ill and you can't work, especially if you're a solopreneur and you're trading hours for dollars, is you need some type of backup. And then of course it's also your bonus stash.
Absolutely.
So every quarter is being able to pay yourself a reward from that bonus stash.
Yeah.
That's the most exciting.
Yeah. And also within that, so my group practice also pays for any of my employees that want health insurance. So it also comes from that to pay for my health insurance. So for Anthem Blue Cross, because I don't have any health insurance from any other company that I work for, within my group practice, it's set up where I get health insurance and also offer that to my employees. But for that owner's comp, that's where I pay a lot of my medical expenses.
That's interesting. So for me, I'm a solo practitioner, so I'm just an N of one. So the way that I conceptualize this is that the owner's pay account is what I get because I work in the business. So because I see clients, I'm entitled to some amount of pay, right? And so owner's comp is just that. It's nothing flashy, sexy. It's nothing shiny. It's just because I work in the business X hours per week, I am entitled because I'm an employee of this business to make this amount of money. And then the profit, this is how my business was able to go above and beyond to become more efficient, to save more money, and to earn more above and beyond what it needed to run. And so my reward at the end of each quarter is whatever's in that profit account. And because I'm a solo practitioner and because no one else owns the business, I don't have any stakeholders, I single-handedly get to cash whatever is in that account, that profit account at the end of each quarter, and spend it on pretty much whatever the heck I want to.
Beer, Vegas, all those things. Yeah.
Oh, wait, Ernesto, you forgot food.
And food, exactly. Yeah. And GoPros. So
one of the important things, and I know Ernesto talks about like his money narrative, and his money narrative, it's been difficult to hold on to money. And then there's other of us. For me, I have been a money hoarder, right? And so what happens is money is energy, right? So if money is stagnant and just staying there, right, and we're not using it to create good energy, it can't flow, it can't move. And so part of paying that portion to ourselves quarterly is creating good positive energy around paying yourself and the good that feels, because the more that you're doing that, the more money can be created into your life. right? You feel good about that. So I know in the Millionaire Mind or the JAR systems or things like that, they talk about the play account. So for me, that was hard, right? Because I'm more like, well, let's spend on what makes sense and let's, cut expenses here. But really rewarding yourself and feeling good about that is so important because we do work hard for our money. And so we need to feel good about that.
And Laura makes a really. She talks a little bit about the mini plates. The two most important that you have to be thinking about is one, the profit, and the other is a tax, and making sure that you've got some money going into those. Now, when you start putting those money, allocating the money into those areas, the no temptation account, it's actually incredibly empowering. That, I think, those two areas right there, when you can. When you have the willpower to put the money in there, it actually increases the psychology of doing it repetitively. And it's really empowering to see that. You go, wow. And it also puts your business up against whether or not it is healthy.
And one of the things I think, Ernesto, that you point out that's really important, and I've heard this time and time again, and I know Laura's talking about the 1%, even if it's $1, it's not about the money at first, it's about the habit of it, right? So when we can create a very specific habit and we do it consistently, it's important because then that generates the movement, right? That generates the flow of it all. And that's the really cool thing. So it's not, so for those of you listening, I don't want you to think about like, oh, I don't have a lot of money right now. It's not about that. It's about creating the system and the habit.
Yep, exactly. So let me just give an example how this looks like. So in the very beginning, Laura was saying, put 1%, right? Now I'm at about 5% on putting money. I started with, because it was hard for me to go 1%. Okay, put that in there. And I had the temptation of, I need it back. Let me get it back, right? But when you start putting that in every quarter, you start increasing that percentage. 1% is just the suggested amount to put in there. But if you feel like, okay, I'm going to put 5%, you can actually jump onto that if you want to. So there's no concrete on how much percentage you should put in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And before we got started on the podcast, one of the things I had shared, so we apply Profit First to our business, the Private Practice Startup. And one of the things, because we're an online business, when you're an online business, you don't have those, tangible expenses. We're paying for things like Zoom and stuff like that on a monthly basis.
We don't have overhead.
We don't have overhead. So we've been actually able to decrease the percentage of what we put in for our operating expense and increase our profit, which is also really exciting.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then as far as how to know what percentage to put in, that's often a common question too. It's like, well, you guys are talking about like 1% and 5%, and where is all this coming from? So one of the figures in the book actually lays it out based on how much you make. And the first column of this chart is $0 to $250,000 per year. And then it goes up. And so as far as I'm concerned, the practitioners that I'm working with are in that first column. Like there's no need to look at the whole rest of the figure. Yeah, there's Ernesto showing it. Page 62, I think.
68. Oh, wow. Almost.
I was close. 68. And so when you're right. So the percentages that we're talking about are based on what is in that figure on page 68. So most people watching this or listening to this are probably only making under $250,000 per year. I'm sure there are some who are making more. And so the percentages that he lays out in Profit First are according to that amount that you're making yearly.
And it's great because you don't have to, and I love that page 68 because I remember when all the numbers started flying in my face, I got so overwhelmed, I actually took a nap after that. I hate so when I came across page 68, I was like, oh, okay, I can see where I'm at, and I'm going to use that percentage and then kind of adjust it from what is good for me.
Cool. So I know in the time that we have left today on the podcast is we wanted to maybe talk about the difference in between a solo and a group practice and how you apply it to that. And then we're going to share with you what Ernesto and Laura are up to. So if you really want to create this in your business, is you're going to be reaching out to them to help you with this. So this is awesome. One of the cool things, Laura, you said you're teaching a course.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I talk about Profit First in my flagship program as one of many important systems that you need to have. I considered creating an entire course solely on the Profit First method. And in order to do that, I think I would have to actually become a certified Profit First professional. And so that's quite a process. So I may not have a separate course just for Profit First, but it'll definitely be incorporated in my flagship program that I offer 2 to 3 times a year. And so the next one will be around February of 2018. And we'll be spending 2 whole weeks on systems and Profit First, as well as the videos that I record to really break it down to make it like chewable chunks that you can actually manage. We'll be doing it together.
But did you say you're teaching a college course?
I am. So I'm teaching a grad level program. Yes. And this is required reading for the program.
How amazing is that?
Like, awesome, Laura.
No, she's a badass.
She is. She phrase that badass.
No, honestly, I have chills when you say that, because how many times do we talk about that in school? We're constantly told you're not going to make money in this field. Then we go into community mental health because there wasn't anything and we're not going to make money in this field. And you, my friend, are changing and shifting that by requiring this book. And I think that's so freaking awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. I love it. So
you're creating wealth.
I'm back. Namaste to you, bowing down to you. I think that's amazing. So I appreciate you changing, the mindset of our field.
Definitely. Thank you.
Yeah. So let's talk about the difference between applying this to a solo practice or a group practice, which Ernesto has.
Mm-hmm. Where do you want to start, Ernesto?
Sure. So I have I'm going up to 7 employees soon. And so I got to make sure that they're all paid for, right? I mean, that's the main thing. So like Laura was saying, income comes in from all of the Square, Stripe, whatever accounts that we have, it all checks, cash, everything goes into that big pile. So the way that I would work with this is making sure that the operating expenses where I pay all of my clinicians are coming from the operating expense. Now, I had to ask my accountant if that's right or wrong or whatever to do it. But because the way that I set up my group practice and also the taxes and the accounting, he suggested to have it come out of the owner's comp, the expense. So that's where, the operating expense. So that's where I pay that account where I write the checks to my clinicians come from that space. So when I give that sheet to my accountant and the tax guy, he goes, boom, here it is. And he'll take care on his end on what to do with that.
And Laura, what about you?
So it sounds like maybe the biggest difference between a solo practitioner who's just in business by themselves versus a group is how to handle the independent contractors you have or the W-2 employees you have. It seems like those would pretty much be the biggest differences between the two. Because as Ernesto was talking, I was like, that sounds complicated. So when you look at the instant assessment and you look at, there's a place, a row there that says it's like materials and subs or something. And so if you are a solo practitioner and you just rent an office, you have there's $0 in that. That is not even a consideration. Whereas I think depending on maybe the size of the group, practice, where that money might be allocated from, materials and subs might be a consideration. But when you're just an N of one, you're just solo, really all of your expenses are just all coming out of the OpEx account, whether it's your liability insurance, things that are more regular, your Psychology Today profile. And then there are things like, boxes of tissues, and those will all come out of OpEx. So it's actually very simple, I think, for individual practitioners.
Yeah. Laura, maybe you can speak to this. Because I have a group practice, I had to really, now with filmit.com, I also implemented the Profit First because it's just me, right? It's just me. But with my group practice, it's a little bit different. I'm still struggling with this idea of seeing Profit First from a group organization, group practice perspective, because a lot of the writing, a lot of the chapters are geared towards, Laura, like you said, more individualized professional entrepreneurs and businesses. Mm-hmm. So that's how, I kind of go back and forth with that. Maybe, Laura, you can point me to someone that can kind of go, okay, this is what we do in group practice. It's really difficult and complicated.
Well, I'd love to plug Maureen Werbach. Am I pronouncing her name right? She is a group practice owner in Illinois, and me and her talk one-on-one a lot about Profit First. And I know that she's had Mike Michalowicz on her podcast before. She's a successful group practice owner. So just to plug her really quick, she's great.
I'm glad you said that because I'm in a mastermind with her. She's amazing.
You need to ask her about this. Yeah, so she can definitely help you out and hopefully answer any questions that you have. Because when it comes to, that's why when I did a blog post recently, actually, where I did a whole video. It was like Profit First 101. And I made sure to tell everybody that this is specifically for individual practices, not for groups, because when it comes to group practices and how to implement this, it can get pretty hairy.
So I know we could talk on and on. So one of the things that I would recommend you guys doing is buy the book, right? Profit First, Michael Michalowicz. Buy the book first. But for each of you, what do you hope, if you were to summarize one thing that you want the audience to take away from our discussion today, what would you guys say it would be?
You can be profitable.
Yes.
You can definitely be profitable. The lie that we tell ourselves within the mental health community that you cannot be wealthy and make money, we need to stop that. We are the testimony that we can actually make money and have fun doing what we're doing, right? So if I can go back in time and tell myself all of these truths, the one truth I can tell myself back then would be you can actually make money, because unfortunately I work just like with Laura. I work with a lot of students in a graduate program, and the graduate system is actually gearing the students to work in mental health community work, right? Settings. Right, exactly. And Kate was making the thumbs down sign, and absolutely that's so true. So one of the things that we are doing within the entrepreneurial world is to help the mental health community, especially the young ones coming up, that you can actually make money and be wealthy doing this. You don't have to box yourself into community work.
And Laura, what about you? What do you want people to take away?
I want people listening to remember that you now own a business. So this isn't just about seeing clients. This is about you starting a business from the ground up. And it's your responsibility to make it profitable, because that's how you can impact the world. Because when I am able to pay myself, when I'm able to profit, I'm also able to use my profits however I want. And last quarter, I don't know if you guys can see this, last quarter, I went to a fundraiser and I gave them money at this fundraiser, and that all came out of my profit account because I wanted to. So you don't have to feel like if I'm in private practice and I got in this field to help people, and so therefore I can't be profitable. I think that that's a huge mistake, a huge mindset mistake that is maybe put into our brains in graduate school. You can be profitable, and you can also make a huge impact on people's lives. You can
nice. And I think what I want people to take away is that you can start at any time, whether you're new in business or you're 5 years in business. It doesn't matter. It's about creating the system and habit. And like Laura said, the first step is the hardest. So get the book, read it, connect with Laura, connect with Ernesto. Actually, Laura, how can people get in touch with you? And I wanted you to share about your flagship program and anything else that you want people to know about.
So they can find me at yourbadasstherapypractice.com. And there they can get on the wait list to and the course that I have. And then I also have my free course on building a Badass Psychology Today profile, which I've been on your podcast about.
Yes, you have. That's one of our most popular.
Woo! And then they can find me on Facebook, pretty easy, facebook.com/ what do you think? Your Badass Therapy Practice.
Such a fun name to say. Badass Therapy Practice.
And Ernesto, what about you? How can people get in touch with you, and what do you have to offer to our community?
Sure. I would love, that's a really good one. I wasn't prepared for that one. But you can visit my website, filmit.com. There's a link there to friend me on Facebook. And like I said, I don't have any friends and family on there. It's only colleagues and students and other professionals. And what I love to do is just to engage with you. On my end, I do a lot of videos and teach you how to do promotional videos and all those things. And I'm also plugging Profit First and other books that would help you with money mindset, entrepreneurship. I mean, I'm a reader. I just love reading. And so I love giving that information out. And I've got tons of awesome resources like with Laura, like with you guys. And when I do workshops, literally you guys are on my PowerPoint.
Awesome.
It's so funny.
Aww.
It's like, yeah, here are my friends giving me street cred. Visit their website. They'll help you out.
Oh, can you totally put like our screenshot selfie like on the PowerPoint?
I got you covered. It's already done. It's already done.
That's awesome. And you guys, if you don't know Laura or Ernesto, which I don't know how you don't already, but if you don't, please check out their stuff because they're awesome. I know that, Laura was referencing our podcast about creating a therapy directory, a badass therapy directory. And it's actually a podcast that we use as part of our group coaching, which is going to be an e-course and really creating copy and content marketing messages that convert to clients. And so we use that. And then, Ernesto, he's also totally open if you want to just like friend him on Facebook. Ernesto does something really amazing called influencer marketing, which we probably should do a podcast on that. But it's just kind of everyday things about what he does, and people are just so connected to it. And I know I posted recently, like, where do you get most of your clients? And of course, Ernesto said selfies. But it's just a way for people to get to know him genuinely and what he does. He posts about food. I love when he says, a moment of silence. About food. That's so awesome. I posted, actually, we had some like gourmet donuts and I did that and I tagged you.
Yeah, you did. I saw that.
If you guys haven't connected with them, please do so. And we wanted to say thank you for joining us. And, once we release this podcast and you start delving into this topic and really making your business profitable, we want to know about that. We want to celebrate you. We want you to be in the realm of wealthy therapists. Maybe we should like have a club, right? So we wanted to say thank you so much, Startup Nation, for joining us today. If this was your first time joining us, we hope you got a ton of value. If you're a loyal listener, we know you got value. And we want you to come hang out with us in Facebook where we hang out. Where actually Laura and Ernesto are in our community. So look for the Private Practice Startup. Just ask to be a member of that group. We will go ahead and approve you to join. And then next time we are going to be talking to Elvita, and she is going to be talking about how to promote yourself without being salesy, which I think is so important because that salesy word is kind of like a super turnoff.
Yeah, people see it as sleazy, and therapists are, even with the sales word, they're just like, eek. Yeah. So I'm really excited about that podcast too.
So make sure you guys check out our show notes for all the resources, tips, and everything that we talked about today. It's going to be right there. And we will see you next time, Startup Nation. Thanks for allowing us to inspire you from startup to mastery.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye. See you soon.
Thanks for joining us on The Private Practice Startup. Visit theprivatepracticestartup.com for awesome resources, free trainings, attorney-approved private practice paperwork, and so much more.